Trump signs $9 billion rescissions package, cuts foreign aid and NPR funding. In a significant move, President Donald Trump has enacted a rescissions package amounting to approximately $9 billion, effectively retracting previously allocated federal funds designated for foreign aid and public broadcasting. This decision came after both the House of Representatives and the Senate approved the legislation earlier this month, as confirmed by sources close to the situation. This signing represents yet another legislative achievement for the Trump administration, occurring just 2 weeks after the president enacted a substantial tax and domestic policy bill, often referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill. The rescissions package notably withdraws nearly $8 billion from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, an agency that was once independent and focused on providing assistance to impoverished nations and facilitating development efforts. However, under the Trump administration, USAID has experienced layoffs and has been integrated into the State Department due to concerns that it was not effectively promoting U.S. interests abroad. Additionally, the package also cuts over $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, which is responsible for funding organizations like NPR and PBS. It's important to note that the total $9 billion reduction is merely a small fraction of the national debt, which currently stands at around $36.7 trillion. The House had previously cast its version of the rescissions package in June, and the final vote took place early Friday after the Senate narrowly approved it with a 51-48 vote on July 17th. Notably, Republican Senators Susan Collins from Maine and Lisa Murkowski from Alaska joined Democrats in opposing the package. Senate Majority Leader John Mulvaney, a Republican from South Dakota, expressed that this measure aligns with broader goals to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government, describing it as a necessary step towards fiscal responsibility. He stated, "I appreciate all the work the administration has done in identifying wasteful spending. Now it's time for the Senate to do its part to cut some of that waste out of the budget. It's a small but important step toward fiscal sanity that we all should be able to agree is long overdue." On the other hand, Democrats have criticized the cuts to foreign aid, arguing that they benefit adversaries like China and Russia, thereby jeopardizing national security. They contend that the Republicans' approach to rescissions sets a precarious precedent that could threaten various programs in the future. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, warned on the Senate floor, if Republicans slash more American aid, it will create a dangerous vacuum that the Chinese Communist Party will continue to eagerly fill. Schumer further argued that the use of rescissions undermines the bipartisan appropriations process, suggesting that it allows the Trump administration to unilaterally decide which programs to defund, putting essential services like healthcare, education, and food assistance at risk. This isn't the first time Trump has attempted to push through a rescissions package. A similar effort in 2018, aimed at cutting foreign aid and public broadcasting funds, failed to gain traction in the Senate. The last successful rescissions package was approved by Congress in 1999. As this situation unfolds, it raises critical questions about the future of federal funding and the implications of such cuts. What are your thoughts on the impact of these rescissions? Do you believe they will ultimately benefit or harm U.S. interests abroad? Share your opinions in the comments. The fight to save KMUD, a lifeline for Northern California. Alert. The Redwood Coast could soon lose the one voice that always breaks through smoke, static, and darkness. For 37 years, KMUD FM has threaded its 91.1 megahertz signal through the steep canyons of Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity counties, stitching together far-flung ranches, communes, tribal lands, and tiny towns. During wildfires, when cell towers melt and the power grid blinks out, someone in a small blue and white shack still says, "You are not alone. Here's what you need to know." But here's where it gets controversial. Congress just approved the Rescissions Act of 2025, yanking $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. President Trump is expected to sign the measure any day, instantly erasing roughly a quarter of KMUD's annual operating budget. Rural stations nationwide face a similar cliff, yet KMUD stakes feel uniquely high because in these mountains, radio is often the only thing left humming. The station's news release did not mince words. We have lost 25% of our yearly funding overnight, a direct threat to a service thousands rely on when every other link fails. They reminded legislators of one simple fact. Almost everyone, rich or poor, still owns a battery-powered radio. Walk behind Redway Drive and you'll spot the studio, a hand-painted cottage under towering redwoods. Inside, string lights, Grateful Dead stickers, and rows of dusty cassettes surround a second-hand soundboard. A toddler sometimes wanders between stacks of vinyl while a volunteer lines up the next rock and roll track. It looks like chaos. It functions like a heartbeat. Everybody's hurting, admits financial manager Sarah Stark. Salaries are already bare bones, but staff hours may still be cut. Transmitter leases, the steel skeletons that fling the signal across 3 counties, could be on the chopping block too. Over the weekend, a one-time major donor called Stark. His income is now 7% of what it was, and he simply cannot give. She hears that story everywhere. Yet for people living off the grid in the rugged hills, KMUD isn't background noise. It is companionship. When we disappear, Stark warns, those isolated listeners lose their friend, their lifeline to the outside world. Former news director Lauren Schmidt can vouch for that. While living in the internet-free hamlet of Whale Gulch, she and her neighbors paused supper each night when KMUD's newscast came on. I'd yell, "Quiet, the news is starting," she recalls. The station also launched her career, KMUD with the Spark. The spark first caught in 1987, when 77-year-old Jimmy Derschlag and a cadre of idealists assembled a tiny transmitter in these very hills. Different enclaves were desperate to speak to one another, Derschlag explains. If you loved country, you hosted a country show. If you loved jazz, you hosted jazz. The programming mirrored the community because the community literally walked in and created it. Technical director Simon Freck helped bolt KMUD's towers to mountaintops in the late 80s. Federal community service grants soon followed, enabling better equipment and wider reach. That funding was tremendous, Freck stresses. Now it's gone, and there is no obvious place to trim what little remains. Replacement ports, rent, electricity, none are optional.